This episode of The Matt Ferret Show is brought to you by the Brickhouse Agency. Brickhouse is a boutique independent health insurance agency that focuses on finding the right Medicare coverage for folks across the country. Matt's wife, Nikki, is the heart behind Brickhouse. She's great at making confusing things clear and is passionate about helping people find a Medicare insurance policy that suits their individual needs. To schedule a free one-on-one appointment with Nikki or a member of her team, head on over to brickhouseagency.com or simply call 844-844-6565 and someone will help you schedule a phone call or a Zoom meeting. The consultation is free because the insurance companies pay Brickhouse, not you. There's never any pressure or obligation to enroll. Your clearer, simpler Medicare journey is just a call or click away. brickhouseagency.com. Not affiliated with or endorsed by the government or federal Medicare program. Contacting Brickhouse Agency, LLC will direct you to a licensed insurance agent.
Welcome to The Matt Ferret Show. Practical conversations to help you thrive in midlife, retirement, and beyond. I'm Matt Ferret, author of books and courses on Medicare and Social Security, and a former healthcare executive with decades of insider experience. I use that experience to help people make clearer, smarter decisions about health, wealth, lifestyle, and caregiving. Each week, I sit down with experts, insiders, and fascinating people to explore what it really takes to thrive, finding purpose, building stronger relationships, and creating a sense of meaning and community in the second half of life. Together, we'll light the path towards your wealth, wisdom, and wellness. Welcome to the conversation. Hey, everybody. Today, we're diving into something that impacts everybody. Finding the right job, especially later in your career, and then understanding how hiring really works behind the scenes, because it has changed a lot over the last just couple of years. My guest today, Rick Denius, is the founder and CEO of HR Search Company, one of the fastest growing HR executive search firms in the country. Now, he spent over 25 years in HR leadership, including 18 years at CNN in Atlanta. And now he helps companies across the U.S. find senior HR talent. Rick's an expert on the hidden job market, hiring bias and biases, ageism, and how to actually get your resume in front of a real decision maker when there are all these AI bots out there and hiring platforms that you may not be able to sneak by. We'll talk about why great candidates, qualified candidates, get ghosted, and what really happens after you click apply, and how to hack the job search process, especially if you're over 40. Rick, with that, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Matt.
Tell everybody what you do, how long you've been doing it, and how you help people. And
Certainly. Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity. I launched the HR Search Company in 2017 after 18 years in corporate human resources at a big company. The company, what we do is we help companies find and hire great HR people. We are a contingent and a retained search firm on the permanent side. And we also provide temporary staffing solutions if somebody's going on a leave, along those lines. But I peek behind the curtain at hundreds of companies. I've engaged with thousands of candidates. We do a lot of work confidentially in what I call what's known as the hidden job market, where companies elect not to publicly post a role on their website for various reasons, and I can certainly get into that. I just spend a lot of time. I spend all my time sort of facing the job market, so I've got some battle tested expertise and some really good insights. I think that'll be helpful for your viewers and the participants here on the podcast. So and then on the ageism side, of course, I'm over 40. Up until I turned 40, I wasn't part of any protected class. There's that, and there's things that people can be doing strategically to help get them in front of decision makers, and ultimately get hired.
That's great. Thanks for the background. I've got a whole ton of a lot of questions for you, but the
Yeah,
first
great.
one, which is probably you've gotten asked 5,000 times, did you hire anybody at CNN that we would know?
Oh, great question. So no, I mean, it was, there was two worlds. There was the talent, the on camera folks, and then I primarily dealt with behind the scenes folks. So no, I don't think there's any real real names there, but I've got a lot of stories from that time.
Can you tell me? Can you tell me a PG or even? I mean, if we get a mature audience,
Yeah, I got one.
PG-13 version. You got any good ones?
Sure. So I got one. There's a part of my job there running the recruiting efforts for Turner Broadcast, the parent company. We would go on, we'd go to conventions and conferences of journalism organizations. And part of that was for the job fair aspect or to network to meet potential candidates. But what media companies do at these things typically is they'll bring some of their on-air folks and they'll set up little resume tape machines, the picture of VCRs type of thing. And, cub reporters are walking around with their tapes. They're getting feedback on their resume tapes. And so I was kind of marshaling all of these things together. And a day or two before we were supposed to go to a conference, called up one of the correspondents that was going to be at the conference. So I call her up and she answers the phone. She's whispering, and I'm like, "Hey, this is Rats. Just need to know what time you're getting in on Thursday." And she's like, "Rick, I'm in the Rose Garden." So she was like, she answered the phone in the middle of a presidential press conference because she saw the incoming number from the main, the main CNN number. And that was one that that I wasn't able to live down with her at all, but she promptly hung
That's
up on
awesome.
me.
That's awesome. That's
Kind of
funny.
happened.
Well, when we're done with this, I want to ask you about the personalities. Some people may or may not know. Like right out of college, I did a little local TV news stuff, and it always was amazing to me what their personality was on camera didn't always match their personality off camera.
Yes.
And sometimes they did. Sometimes they were just as genuine as you thought they were, and sometimes it was Jekyll and Hyde. We'll talk offline on that.
Yeah.
So let's get back into hiring and what you do here and what you do for people and for organizations. You've seen this now from every side. So big corporate, CNN, you've run your own search firm, and you just outlined, you're not just, nobody's coming to you just going like, "Hey, we've got a executive director role, help me fill it." You're into a lot of different nuances. So from your angles, what frustrates you most about how job searches actually work today?
Yeah, great question. Great question. What gets me is that people on both sides of the equation sometimes lose what's really happening. And so let me ask you this, Matt, like why do companies post jobs? Why do companies just philosophically, why do they post jobs?
Well, to attract the right talent into their organization. There's a bland but generic.
Yeah, no, you're on the right track. But it really is because they have a unique set of problems that can only be solved by hiring somebody new. Okay. So before they post the job, somebody comes in and says, "Hey boss, I'm out of here," right? So now the boss is like, "Okay, so what do I do? I need to replace the work that this person was doing. I still have these problems that need to be solved that this person was solving. And now what do I do?" First thing they do is they look to see who can they promote into the role internally. They look to see if they can move the work around to different plates. The last thing they want to do is actually go through the job posting process and bring somebody new into the organization for three reasons. One, it's really expensive to do it. Payroll is the number one expense for any company, right? So the more people you have to pay, the less revenue you get to keep. Two, it takes a lot of time. There's no such thing as a professional hiring manager. These people have day jobs that drive revenue, and to take them away from that and put them in the theater of what is a job search interviewing process with maybe limited capability and understanding, which leads into the third one, which is risk. Posting a job presents all kinds of risk for doing it wrong, for discriminating, for you name it, asking the wrong question. So when they post a job to fill it, they've got one thing going on. They've got a set of problems that they can't solve any other way. So they're going to have to find the best person that's suited to solve those problems. So it boils down, it's very simple. It boils down to that. How do you make yourself, as a job seeker, how do you make yourself the person who is the most capable and the most suited to solve the specific set of problems that led to the job being posted. A lot of times people get caught up in the noise in their resume, and they spend $1,000 and they have somebody rewrite it for them, and it looks like the Constitution, or they treat it like the Declaration of Independence. They'll put it on their wall and they'll send that $1,000 resume to every job that comes along. And that's not the best way to do it. Most jobs these days at a certain level aren't even publicly posted. They'll come to a firm like mine, or they'll do networking, or they'll be looking for referrals. So it comes down to the person who's going to get hired is the person who separates themselves as the best option to solve the problems, the unique set of problems that led to them solving them. So that's one thing that kind of frustrates me, is people sort of lose sight of that. Companies don't hire people to hire people. That just doesn't make any sense. So if you put yourself in the shoes of the person who's looking to hire, to the hiring manager, you've got to feel their pain, and you've got to be the person that can alleviate their pain.
I think it was interesting, a piece in there that you said, which is it's often, you didn't say the phrase, I'll say it. It's often the employer's last result, or last of three bad options, right? Is, okay, somebody left. Oh my gosh, that guy or that gal was really important, or we need to refill it. So is anybody inside? Can they, first of all, can take the work? No. Okay, well, can we promote anybody? No. Well, those two things are bad for businesses in the first place, right? If you don't have continuity or standard operating procedures, or you don't have your staff ready to give someone a promotion into this role, that's a bad thing from an employer standpoint. So when it gets to the third one, does that automatically, should that send off warning bells and signs to potential applicants that, is that a company issue? Is that a company culture issue?
So all companies, there's a spectrum of HR sophistication. There's a spectrum of just overall sophistication, right? And the companies of the buildings you drive by and you see the company names on the side of the buildings, they tend to have it figured out, very well resourced and sophisticated HR systems and processes, and not only HR but just company wide. Smaller companies, medium-sized companies, these companies that are like private equity portfolio companies who are just trying to get better and more efficient and more profitable. Sometimes they don't invest in readiness and succession planning, and making sure that they do have a pipeline of folks when somebody leaves. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a bad mark on a company if they don't have successors lined up, especially smaller companies where there's fewer people doing more things anyway. But it is a thing that strategic workforce planning is a big part, and making sure that you're constantly trying to get your next set of leaders ready to go internally is super important. A lot of companies spend a lot of time doing that. In fact, a lot of people spend, that's their job, to assess leadership readiness in some of these companies.
Good points. Thank you for those. So I'm going to go back to something you were riffing on before I interrupted, which is the hiring process, and good candidates. It's hard for them to get a reply after submitting a resume. They spend somebody to rewrite their resume. I've always kind of thought, if you ask anyone to rewrite anything, they will. It can be Shakespeare, and someone will rewrite it because you asked them to rewrite it. It doesn't mean it's necessarily good or bad. Well, if you're rewriting Shakespeare, I'm sure that's bad. But you get my point. Like, I do. You can tweak a resume of 100. You can pay 1,000 people $1,000, and everyone's going to come up with a different resume. So beyond the resume, you were talking about networking and using search firms. I think there are probably a lot of people who maybe are in that middle management role, the director, the assistant VP, the executive director, that they're at a stage in their career, right, 40s, 50s, where if they don't make a move, they're probably not going to get promoted here, but they haven't made a move in years. And when they did, they were clicking on applying for that director role, which in a search firm is not going to really source for you. How does someone like that think about their resume, where we are today with the systems that filter out resumes on keywords? And how does someone go from, I don't know any recruiters, or I don't know how to I don't like networking. How does someone do that these days?
Well, there's two things there. One is the resumes, but then one is just sort of something that a lot of people don't understand about the ecosystem of search firms and this part of the process, the job search process. We exist B2B, right? So companies come to us to help them find people. And a lot of times people say, well, I'm looking for a job. I've got to find a headhunter. Well, it's important for us firms to have databases of resumes and folks that we can go to. But until we have marching orders from somebody who's going to pay us to go out and find something very specific, it really, it's almost like a we'll find you kind of thing. So how do you do that? You just make yourself as visible as possible on LinkedIn through, rich detail. What gets me is I see these LinkedIn profiles from senior people, and they just put a sentence or two, and they have so much more to offer. And then I see some LinkedIn profiles. LinkedIn, there's no character limit. They say keep your resume to a page or two. Your LinkedIn profile should be, extremely detailed. For folks who are over 40, I've got a couple of things that I see. So I look at resumes all the time. And when some tips, three tips I wanted to impart before I forgot on the resume side. There's something that I call right now, it'd be like the 2005 rule, is don't put any jobs before 2005 on your resume unless they were like VP and above. Just put a little section in there when you get to that part. Say previous roles included title employer. Don't put graduation years on your resume. And
I think I know why.
From like outdated tech, like BlackBerries or Lotus Notes and things like that. I mean, that's a big turnoff. But yeah, so those are some ideas and some tips for folks that when I look at resumes. A good resume for me is one that is it's got the right level of detail, not too much, maybe 4 or 5 bullet points per job, depending on how long you've been somewhere. Generally speaking, what I want to be able to do is look at the resume and very quickly determine who you are, what you've done, what level you're at, what types of companies you've been at, what your capability and how much horsepower you have based on the need that I'm looking for. Nobody ever looks at a resume in a vacuum where they're like, oh, this is a nice resume. Maybe one day I'll hire somebody like this. When somebody's looking at a resume, they're looking at not only that resume, but multiple resumes to decide who they're going to reach out to, who is the closest to the center of the target for what they're specifically looking for, with all the parameters, whether it's working in a private equity portfolio company, getting them ready for an IPO. There's little nuances around, so you can have everything else, but if you don't have that, you're probably not going to get in the front door. So there's things that that you can do, and you can do a little bit with some more freedom and latitude on your LinkedIn profile. And I wouldn't overlook LinkedIn, even if you're in manufacturing or if you're in IT. That's kind of where things are going so far as recruiters, at least in the corporate hidden job market, spend a ton of time looking at folks.
Yeah, thank you for that. I got a couple of follow-ups in there. First of all, I think I know the answer. Why wouldn't you put your graduation year? Is it because it shows your age?
It shows your age. So yeah, look, ageism is real, Matt. You know this, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, I've talked about it on this show before. I say it's the only ism that's left. That's still okay for some reason.
Exactly. And there's, people that have real biases around it. And they usually just subconsciously, there's like 3 or 4 things behind it. Like they think, oh, you're too expensive for this role, or, oh, you can't adapt to new technology and new processes if you've been doing things a certain way your entire career, or like the dynamics of working for younger management structures. There's another one. Or maybe you're near retirement and, oh no, I'll put you in this job, but 3 years from now, I've got to do this search all over again. I mean, these are the real things that are sort of subconsciously in some people's minds when they're like, okay, we're looking, for somebody maybe earlier in their career for this role. But there's things that you can do as a more seasoned job seeker, to keep in mind, is maybe a lot of his mindset, and thinking like that your experience is your unfair advantage, right? If you can take what you've got, the decades of pattern recognition beats AI any day of the week. And oh, by the way, AI is new for everybody. AI is new for a Gen Z person, just as new as it is for a boomer or, any generation. We're all dealing with the same thing.
Don't be intimidated by it.
No.
Yeah.
And I would almost also say that, I'll share, I'm Gen X, I came up through the dawn of the internet age and sort of worked through it. I'd argue I'm more adaptable than anybody because I've adapted 25 years of technology changes, right? And I've seen the evolution along the way.
Yeah,
so
man, we started.
adaptable-
I'm Gen X too, and man, we started on green screen.
Yeah.
Green screen. I mean, IBM, and then it
Yellow.
went to blue. And boy, if you had a blue screen, that was fancy. Then I think third grade, my school got an Apple IIe, and we had color.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, talk about we've seen it all.
Yeah, we have.
Since the very dawn.
And it, don't downplay it. And then also, like, another thing you have going for you if you're a seasoned job seeker is you've got an army of advocates that are people that you've worked with in the past that can help let you know about job openings. They might be able to open doors for you. If you're under 40, you've got a lot of connections, but if you're over 40, you have a ton of credibility and stories to tell. And you're adaptable. You're obviously resourceful. And wisdom comes with years, and that pattern recognition about how things go is an intangible that has a ton of market value, for sure.
So thank you, and so I'm going to go back to some of the stuff you said too, which is don't be afraid of AI, but also LinkedIn is more powerful than you think, and just because you're not necessarily in a segment that you think people value, you said manufacturing, just because you were the plant general manager for a bacon factory in rural Ohio. Don't think that doesn't matter on LinkedIn, because it does. Is it?
No, absolutely. Right? I'd say manufacturing, actually, as a sidebar, is probably one of the industries that more seasoned job seekers can find success, just because of what's involved. A lot of times they don't evolve. Once they figure out how to make money making bacon in Ohio, they're going to continue to make bacon in Ohio with in like innovations along the way here and there, but having that industry knowledge there and that years and years and years of experience. We just filled a head of HR for a plant in the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania. And I think the guy that got hired was 60 plus. It was, what they liked about him was his steady, sort of time tested, kind of seen it all, but still had the energy, the enthusiasm, roll up the sleeves and get in there and sort of come with some fresh energy. I would recommend everybody out there that's 50 plus, take a long look at your LinkedIn profile, 40 plus, or anybody really, but make sure that there's an updated, fresh feeling to it. If someone's reviewing it, looking at your image or just quickly seeing how you describe who you are and what you do, put some thought into that, and have it be something that is that shows a spark, some dynamism. I think that would be some good advice there. But activating your army of advocates, that's the thing. When you're looking on LinkedIn, a lot of times people spend a ton of time on LinkedIn posting seeing a job opening and going for the job. But you can also search on LinkedIn. What I recommend people do is, if you're looking for a specific job, go out and search for people who are currently doing that job in companies the size of the company or the industry that you see a job posting, and then look at their backgrounds. How did they progress? Do you line up? Do you have the same story to tell? Reach out to those people. Say, I'm in your shoes, but I would love to slide into something. Is there one person in your company that you suggest that I might be able to connect with? The worst thing that could happen is they'd say no. LinkedIn has that robust messaging feature, and the search feature is there as well. So there's, what you've got to do is go back to what I said earlier. You've got to make yourself the person who's uniquely suited to solve the set of problems that they have, right? And so if you can, you can apply. I posted a job for a VP of HR back in September, and in 2 days I had 2,600 people had sent me an application for it. So I shut it down. I got in touch with everybody with a big email that said, look, the response is overwhelming. I'm going to start cracking through this and do my best. And I'm still to this day. I got another role recently. I went back to that 2-day flash resume dump. And so there is value there. But if that's your only job search strategy, applying for jobs and sitting back and waiting for a callback, you're not going to, it doesn't work that way.
No, it doesn't sound,
you got to
it
think
doesn't
of
sound it.
different ways to separate yourself is what you
All right. So in your example, you just used job posting. I mean, they're everywhere, right? LinkedIn. And by the way, you said it, I'm going to say it in a slightly different way. When you submit your resume or someone's looking at you, they will Google you.
Absolutely.
And you will have a LinkedIn profile and they will look at it. And if you have anything else out there, pictures of you, being the Boy Scout leader or whatever, that's fine. It's just, they will see all of that. Like, there is no HR rule that I'm aware of that says you can't Google candidates.
No.
So
that's
reputation management is there as well. So you want to make sure to get ahead of that, because literally everybody does it. Maybe everybody knows that, but I think some people will be surprised. So, you said before, and I kind of said this in the intro, and you've just talked about it. People apply for jobs the wrong way. I mean, I have friends that are like, yep, I'm applying for jobs. Like, well, do you need some recruiter referrals? And they're like, yeah. Well, who are you working with? Nobody. I'm just going on LinkedIn and hitting it,
Yeah.
And these are director level, executive director level people that don't even know. So what is the right way? And you just got, 2 days, what'd you say, 2,500 resumes?
Yeah.
You're never going to look at that.
No. I calculated it would take, double-digit hours to go there, but I have the ability to comb through it and search through different search words, and I did follow up with everybody, and kind of let them know,
what I'm saying is, and I know you've got tools to do it. What I'm saying is, a human being is not going to open up $2,500 Word documents and read them for 5 minutes. It's just impossible. So what's the right way to do this then?
Yeah. So the right way is back to what I was saying a minute ago. I mean, there's ways that you can leverage your network to get this done. Sometimes what will happen is somebody will come in and they'll tell their boss that they're leaving, right? So now the boss is like, oh no, I'm losing a key player. What am I going to do? Boss goes to the staff meeting in the morning and announces the departure. Somebody speaks up and says, hey, well, you've got to consider Tommy Rogers for this job, because I talked to him 2 days ago. He's fantastic. He's lights out. I worked with him at the last company. He's looking right now. It would be worth your while to talk to him. And then somebody speaks up. Yeah, you got to talk to Lacey Summers. She's I was talking. So to get yourself into that situation, you must be connecting with folks that you've worked with in the past that are aware of what you've done. And what I would recommend is, if you haven't done this exercise, tomorrow, spend 15 minutes reaching out to people that you used to work with who are aware of who you are and what your capability is, and say, what is one thing that I'm really good at? Or what types of problems am I known to be a credible voice on? What am I good at? So getting that perspective from people, and people will let you know, right? People will say, well, I really appreciated your this, or your ability to quickly do this or that. That can help shape your pitch. Because a lot of times you just get blinded by your own estimation of your value. But if you get that outsider, you're going to start to hear some themes that you can then weave into your narrative as you're talking to folks and outreaching to people. Again, there's two types of folks you can reach out to, I think, if there's a job posting, right? So say, example, head of the bacon sausage factory in Ohio, guy is hiring a CFO, right? The CEO is hiring a CFO. So CFO job. Well, that's a big job. So you could either read the tea leaves pretty quickly and say, okay, well, the hiring manager for the CFO is going to be the CEO, right? So I know who the person that I need to influence is. It's this person directly, because he's going to make the hiring decision and potentially be my future boss. So if I were to reach out to that person, I could either apply and wait for him to get my resume, or I could connect with the person, send him a quick DM. The worst thing you can do is just bury it and say no, right? I get contacted all the time, unsolicited. People say, hey, I want a job. I need a job. I can't really do much with that, but occasionally the right time comes along. I might click on the profile and say, this person's perfect. I need to talk to this person. So that's one thing you can do. You can always sort of reverse engineer if you're the slightest bit resourceful and try to figure out who in the organization is going to be the hiring person and target that person. But then the other one is just reaching out to other people. So reaching out to other CFO is a bad example, but maybe some like let's say like the director level. Reach out to other directors in the organization, just to let them know who you are. If you ever do send an email to somebody like this, make sure that it's forwardable, because you want to make sure that they can just click and send it on to the person who's making the decision. When you have 2,500 people applying for a job, referrals speak super loud, right? So like,
it's an instant filter. I mean, I've been in that room that you described.
Yeah.
Hey, this is happening. All right. Well, I got a guy.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't, even if you have 5, HR sources, 4 of them, if the person in the room sources one of them, that person's getting in that 5.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that's how it works. That's the currency. It's that army of advocates that are out there that you've developed. And that's one of your unfair advantages in this whole thing is your experience, your credibility. Like I said before, like under 40, they might have 20,000 connections. But if you've been at this a long time and you've been developing currency with your coworkers, that's much, much, much more valuable, because those folks might have moved on to other companies that have openings, might have moved into leadership roles that can give you perspective or mentor type advice for you. It's and I know to a certain degree I'm making it sound easier than it is. I know people are really struggling, long-time unemployed folks that are just can't find it, whether they're geographically tied to an area where there's just not a lot of opportunity, or they've worked in an industry where they've their skill set has kind of moved to the back burner.
Mm-hmm.
There are some, there's some things that you need to be doing, whether it's leveraging AI. I've recently developed a pretty good relationship with ChatGPT and getting advice on things and questions about what other people are thinking about this set of problems, or how other people have overcome similar challenges for ideas. There's power in the collective as well.
So I'm going to follow you down that path. So let's say I'm in my 40s or 50s and I've been downsized, or I'm just stuck. I mean, I'm not getting a promotion. Boss is fine, but tea leaves are there. We've got some people in their 30s or early 40s coming up behind who are, probably gonna get it. But I don't necessarily want to pick up and move, or I don't necessarily want to, put my current comfy role at risk just to take a risk that I could get let go in a year or 2 or 3. So walk me through the brain space that someone who finds themselves in that position of safety over risk with age in kind of a dynamic environment first. Can you do that?
Yeah. To a degree, I think I understand the question, and having that, there's always in corporate or in companies, there's always that anxiety that you're going to get laid off, right? Or that, to a certain degree, you don't have all the control, right? You're, even in right to work, especially in right to work states, or maybe you're bound by a contract, but, there's the reality is, anxiety around, how are you going to be able to pay your bills if you don't have a job, is a very real thing. And that's, something that drives folks. If you're getting up in your 40s and your 50s and you're feeling kind of stuck, maybe you're a little burned out, or you're just at a point where you look ahead on the career ladder in your company and you don't want to take that step. I talked to somebody this morning that the next step would be in Oslo, Norway. Like they're just not, they need to get off at some point and they don't know exactly where or how. I would say, start sooner than later. I would say treat every day, even if you've been at a company for 20 years, treat every day like a job interview for your next job or even for your current job. Unfortunately, I mean, you've really got to show up, and you've got to, if you're not adding value, you can't blame a company for a company that exists solely to make money to keep you around, right? If you're not adding to the bottom line directly or indirectly, then you become, so what you've got to do is you've got to continue to have that fire in your belly, continue to innovate, continue to ask questions, continue to push forward. If you do face a big thing where you need to, where you're burning out, a lot of times people will start things on the side, or maybe move into more of an entrepreneurial stance. I know that's something that I did. I know that path is not for everyone. It is, kind of leaving corporate America behind and moving off into the ecosystem of the eat what you kill type stance for a while until you get things up and running. It can be terrifying. I would say just continue to every day be curious, bring your best self. I lost sight of the question a bit there, Matt, but
No, you're good. No, you're good. It was the, how you addressed it, because what I was asking was, when someone is in their 40s or 50s and they may not be, tapped for that management role, don't want it, or that executive leadership role necessarily. And,
don't wait.
They don't want to necessarily take a leap of faith from a company they've been with 3, 5, 10 years to this new unknown, and put their retirement at risk and their cash flow at risk at these ages. And I think you answered it.
I would say don't wait. I would say control the narrative, because you can either have things happen to you or you can make things happen. Age is a number. Relevance is a choice. And I think that you can really, kind of lean into that. I mean, getting older is, not for the faint of heart. I mean, there's real challenges that are present and get more and more heavy as responsibilities pile up. But don't wait. Don't sit around and wait. Don't wait for someone to come up and give you your dream job. It takes work, just as much work as your job does, to really make sure you're living your best life and you're on the right track on a career. But even if everything's fine, you've got to be out there. You've got to be keeping in touch with other people. You've got to be curious about where other people have gone that you might have lost track of, that you need to reconnect with, that might be in a position to hand you a better job. That happens all the time. People that I worked with 15 years ago, I'll see something pass by on LinkedIn and I see they're all this big muckety muck now. And I'm able to, appreciate their journey and their rise and their success, but also, hey, can I help you out? Or I know somebody that would be a good, fit for this opening that I see on your website. That kind of thing.
Have you seen more of the, again, for mid-career, mid-level, upper level, have you seen more companies asking for fractional or for contract work?
Yeah.
And is that scary, or is that a good thing? And where is this all going?
Yeah, I think it's always been there. I think this word fractional has kind of come out the last 2 or 3 years. And people are, the new shiny fractional, work model. I mean, the gig economy, I think there was a book back in 2005 that came out and, kind of talks about the same thing, taking your skills to the market in a way that's either project-based or time-bound. You'll see a lot of fractional CMOs, chief marketing officers. You see fractional HR people. They're contract or time-bound type things. If they need somebody quick and they're going on with a search for a new CEO, you still need someone that can do it quickly. There's a whole market of people out there that can do that. I think that for more seasoned job seekers, looking at that, I'm sure, I talk to people all the time and people always tell me, I'd also be open for a fractional or a contract type role, thinking that, that might offer them some flexibility. It might in the long term offer you some flexibility, but make no mistake, it's a full-time job and there's a ton of pressure to perform right away. It really is for folks that, have a unique set of skills and market value that can quickly step in. So like most of the fractional CFOs that I know are former CFO full-time folks, right? You're not going to have a controller or a finance director, potentially could step into the big job. But if you're in the big job, yeah, absolutely. If you have that, that market value, the fractional contract, interim space, whatever you want to call it, absolutely lean into that. You'll see jobs posted that way. But as you're talking to your army of advocates, make sure that they know that you also are available and interested in doing something along those lines.
When companies are hiring people in this age band, and you alluded to it several minutes ago, which is lean in. It's your experience. It's your professionalism. It's the amount of topics and the wide array of experiences you've had over those years. When people are looking at this age band and looking whether or not to hire, is it pedigree, performance, or personality, or what mix of all of those three that they're looking at?
It's definitely a mix of all three. Personality and cultural fit is huge, especially in team dynamics. People, when they leave jobs voluntarily, tend to do it because their coworkers are a bunch of jerks. Like people, tend to want to work with nice, normal people. I think the majority of people would fit that nice, normal people band.
I would like to work with nice, normal people.
Yeah. So personality is a big piece of it. Oftentimes, one of the things you'll hear people say is, oh, well, yeah, the person was great technically, skill set wise, but I just don't see going out and having, a sandwich with this person. There's just nothing there. And if you're going to spend, a third of your life or more at work, you're going to want to surround yourself with people that you genuinely like, that are authentic and selfless and, team players. So to the extent that personality is a piece of it, definitely. And hopefully that comes out organically in interviews and interactions. You got to kind of get a sense of, who somebody is as you deal with them. From the other two angles, pedigree is definitely important as well. I mean, you want to show that, you've been able to be promoted to positions of increasing responsibility at the right time through your resume should tell a story, very quickly about, maybe a juniorish level position, a medium-ish level position, and then more responsibility. So you're moving in that direction. Continuity is important. Maybe less so in the age of COVID. Before that, it tended to be like, oh, well, this person leaves a job every 3 years. There might be a concern there about, stick-to-itiveness, or there's just something maybe wrong with this person. But nowadays, since COVID, I don't know. I'm seeing hiring managers not batting an eye at 18 months, just because of the, the turbulence that happened in corporate. And sometimes, for a full-time role, if they can get somebody in role for 2 years, that's okay. Maybe that wasn't the case prior, but pedigree is important for most jobs. Personality is critical, but
I've interviewed thousands of people, and I've been interviewed a lot of times myself. And what I've learned personally over doing those things is don't even try to fake it.
Yeah.
And authenticity is not only important to the person who's being interviewed. I mean, you got to be yourself. I mean, be your professional self.
You do.
But
it's so hard.
If you being your personable self, personal professional, right? You can't, roll in and start talking about how the Bears did this weekend, unless the guy or gal interviewing you.
Yeah.
If you hold your personality back, you're not bringing your authentic self. You may think it's not professional to do it that way, but it's actually more professional to do it that way, because honestly, you don't want to work for somebody that doesn't value you as the person you are, and they don't want someone who interviews one way, they get inside the organization, and you really aren't the same person they interviewed. So it goes both ways. If I could, and I don't know if you align with this, but in my experience, it's be yourself. If you will laugh at something, laugh.
Yeah.
If you want to make a joke during a dinner, make the joke. Show some personality, because if you don't, you're doing yourself a disservice. You don't want to be a robot, and you also they don't want a robot. And when you get into an org, if you get the job, They don't want to be like, who's this guy? This is
Yeah.
not who we interviewed.
Right. And I see people that play it real safe in the interview process. The thing about the interview process, man, that was a great point. But it's just so much theater that's involved once you get into the interview itself, right? You've got on one side the hiring manager that's got the power and the control, and then on the other side, and understands culturally and organizationally everything that's important for the job, knows the job inside and out because they work next to Matt, who is in the job for 4 years, and they have the preconceived notions of what's successful. So you're coming in as a candidate, you show up on the Zoom screen, and for the first time now you have a role in this bad theater, let's just say, but you don't have really any of the lines. You don't have an idea of the setting or what the play is all about, but you have a job description and maybe a little bit of research about the background of the person you're talking to, but you're entering into this situation where you don't have a lot of answers. You don't have a lot of power. You're trying to play it safe. A lot of times you don't want to come out and sort of show your real color, your true colors. It's difficult to do. You want to make sure you're saying the right things, which can kind of get in the way of authenticity. So there's books and all types of things that I recommend anybody getting involved in the interview process. Get as much information you can about the company and the job, but get just as much information about how the interview process works and what what your mindset needs to be to show up in the best way, and set yourself apart. Because at the end of the day, remember, I keep going back to it. You want to come across as the person who is the absolute best option to solve the set of problems that got you to this meeting, right? So like being focused on showing you're a problem solver, that you're resourceful, that you're pragmatic, you're easy to work with, you're collaborative, all of these things, you just need to wrap into it. And none of it's intuitive. You've got to go out and you've got to get the ebook, and you've got to do the research on the psychology of the interview if you have any chance of succeeding in that. Otherwise, you are going to play it too safe. You're not going to come across as your true self, and you might miss some opportunities that you otherwise wouldn't have had if you weren't prepared.
When you're in your 40s and 50s, 60s, and you've gotten laid off, how do you handle that? Because you've attained that age and experience, and if you were a manager, then a director, then a senior director, and then so you have shown that progression through time. And then when you reached a certain level or a certain title, you get laid off or fired or downsized or whatever. That's a real gut punch for a lot of people who have climbed the proverbial corporate ladder, and then right at the, right at the pinnacle, right? Your highest role ever, your highest job. Somebody comes in and says, nope, we don't want you anymore. Get out of here.
Yeah.
Not only does that obviously take, which is a whole other topic for a whole other podcast, is of how to take that, how to handle that and process that internally.
Sure.
But also when you're getting back out there, you're going to now have to explain how you were the, VP of manufacturing of the bacon factory in Ohio, but you get laid off.
Yeah.
How do you handle that?
Well, welcome to the club. I mean, everybody in the job market,
right.
Every job seeker gets there one way or another. Right.
Yeah.
And so it's, focusing on your own origin story and not on the set of problems that the hiring manager is looking to solve won't serve you. Like, you've got to be hyper focused on making yourself that person that can make a difference for that, make that person's life easier, right? That's what it comes down to. Like, keeping it simple and keeping the foundational, not letting the emotion overwhelm. Also, if you are laid off, I would recommend outplacement services. A lot of companies, as part of a downsizing, will offer people Lehigh Harrison, or there's a couple other companies where they'll give you the ability to, for 8 weeks or 12 weeks, engage people that are going to get your resume and kind of emotionally get you past the hump. And a lot of times they pull together groups of people that have been recently laid off, so you can share war stories and you can kind of get through it together, because it is an emotional thing. Especially if you were with a company for a long time, you kind of get into system thinking a bit without realizing it. When I left corporate, it took me about a year to decompress fully from being in the corporate ecosystem. And it took a lot longer than I thought it would take. But but there's real things that you deal with emotionally that you have to get past. And if you're in the job market and you're not focused on finding an opportunity where you're the most competitive person, or finding opportunities where you alone or somebody that you can solve those problems and you can make the hiring manager's life easier, that's what's most important. Yes, it's an emotional thing about how you've gotten to the job seeker pool in the job market. There's two ways to go, either voluntarily or involuntarily. Fewer and fewer voluntary people that are like, I can't take it, I got to go and just quit. Yeah. But that happens as well. But everybody's there for any number of reasons, and being laid off is a gut punch in it, especially if you've been somewhere for a while. But lean into the support that you can get from there's a whole industry of outplacement that can really help a job seeker sort of fasten themselves into this mindset of their experience being their unfair advantage, right? Like turn it around a bit.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that outplacements up. A lot of people poo-poo those. A lot of people go like, that's just the company trying to make themselves feel better or look better. I've known people that have used them. I've used them. No, they do help, and not just like make my resume, LinkedIn look better. They do help let you sort through the emotions.
They do.
It sounds silly. I mean, it sounds
a lot
like,
of those people. A lot of the people that work there are former recruiters or former talent, and so they keep their eyes open. And you better believe people come to them and say, if you see a really good manager of marketing that's been laid off, that kind of is has something, let me know. Like, so they're also sort of advocating for people along the way as well. But I've known a number of people, dozens, maybe hundreds of people who have gone through outplacements and have leaned into it. I also know the same amount of other people who are like, oh, well, it's just another thing they're giving me to make me not as mad that they laid me off. Like,
right.
But there really is some real value there for folks that to help get you to your next.
I'm glad you feel that way. I think a lot of people don't understand that dynamic, but I'm glad you brought it out.
Sure.
I know we're running up on time here, but I did want to hear this. I want to ask this question. So we've talked about ageism. We've talked about the hiring process, the resume process, and leaning into your network. Everybody hates that word, but whatever. Yeah. It's still just find your work friends and talk to them. If you don't want to think about networking like you're at a dial a date from the 1990s, then come back and just go talk to your friends.
Yeah.
And then the layoff piece, right? If you've been laid off or downsized or flat out fired and said, today's your last day. What I think I was getting at, or what we've gotten at through this conversation, is hiring bias.
Yeah.
Not necessarily intentional hiring bias, but unintentional hiring bias. With you as a candidate or someone in this age group or someone in this stage, how can that hiring bias show up unintentionally, even among companies that are trying to do it right?
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, so there are deliberate things happening in corporate America around this. There's this idea of it's unconscious bias, because nobody's going to come out and I mean, what really affects the problem at the root of ageism is unconscious bias of the recruiter, the hiring manager, and it's around those things of they're too expensive, they're too close to retirement. They'll never be able to pick up what we do here. And there's flipping the mind frame, the mindset is a great way of thinking about the fact that you've seen so many, you've got the pattern recognition, and you've got the experience, you've got the war stories, and you've got the ability to do it. That bias and that it's just part of the being a human, an unpredictable animal. That's what humans we're and part of that we're hardwired in with some unconscious bias. So there has been some deliberate trainings for people involved in the hiring process to be aware of it, to get around it. I know I was part of that when I was in corporate America. Everybody in our company had to go through that process that touched the process, kind of eye-opening. You're not going to be able to there's nothing you can do to influence somebody else's bias necessarily. you can influence how you show up. And from the resume tips and the, reaching out and trying to figure out what you're really, really good at, and then flipping that into your narrative is a real important thing. And understanding that underneath all the emotion and all the anxiety that goes along with work and job seeking is that at the end of the day, the only person who's going to get hired is a person who can solve the problems that they have, this unique set of problems. No other way they can solve it. They can't solve it by promoting somebody. They can't move the work somewhere else. They're going to have to hire somebody new. So if they're forced into that uncomfortable position of going out there and taking a risk and hiring somebody new, you also have to understand that, focusing on their needs over necessarily the way you feel about where you are in this process is incredibly important. I'll add one thing, just a story back when I was working, when I was a hiring manager at within CNN. A lot of times people would say, well, I've been here. There'd be a job that came open. It was in the newsroom, right? So the way that it worked there was you got in at the entry level. There was this comprehensive entry level news production position, and then it was designed to move up to either produce. So you could go either on a producer track and try to go toward being a news producer or a writer. You get on a technical track where you could be in the control room and be like a director, technical director, or you could go in the field, be a photographer, editor, that kind of thing. But each position that you would get, they didn't hire from the outside. It was all insular until you got to a certain point, right? A certain jumping off point where they would consider some folks. And that was usually around the 5-6 year point where it's either a producer or a pretty senior cameraman or like a technical director that needs some skills. They would hire occasionally because they didn't have the internal ready to go. And so the job would come open for an associate, like 15, 20 people would apply for it. And everybody would think, oh, well, it's just the next step in my evolution. But the person who got the job is a person who could go into the executive producer and say, here's how we're going to increase ratings. Here's what we're going to do differently in the second block to keep people around. Like the people who were more concerned about the problem that the hiring manager is trying to solve, which in this case is ratings, as opposed to, well, this is the next step in my career to be an associate. Like it's just going to happen eventually. So, focusing in on the need that drove the opening is the answer. It's kind of like the secret answer. Like buffalo yourself toward that. Put your energy and attention into identifying what those problems are, and then how you can best show that you can solve them for the amount of money they're willing to pay you.
I love that example, and I love the way you've framed it at the beginning and at the end, which is job searching in this environment for anybody, but especially if you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond. It's an active engagement. It cannot be passive of just checking LinkedIn job postings and clicking your resume. You have to be active and engaged. And then when you are lucky enough to get something, you can't just do, the advice you were probably given when you were going to school. Make sure you know everything about the company, the CEO's name and the history and everything. Yeah, okay, cool. But no, it's more active than that. What they only got here to where they're talking to you is because they didn't have anybody to promote and they can't get anybody else to do the work. So they have a problem that they have to pay you or someone to do. What is that problem and how are you specifically addressing it? And so it's an active, it's just job search. It's active all the way through the process. I think that makes a lot of sense. Rick, this has been really fun and this has been really insightful. I would like to know how people can find you and really what kind of customer you're looking for and what engagements are most impactful for you with people who are listening or watching.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that opportunity. Now, the HR Search Co. is the name of the company. HR Search Company. We're at www.hrsearchco.com. There's a contact us button in there if anybody wants to engage or ask me questions. I'm also on LinkedIn, Rick Denius, Denius. This is what's on the podcast here. And what was the second question?
Yeah, what kind of customer are you looking for? Are you looking for somebody who's just out of college? Are you looking for somebody who's got one more job left in them, or anything in between?
Yeah, no, I love talking to people that are in career transition. I do. The business model is designed around helping companies find good folks. So if there's a business leader who's going to be looking at a departure on their team, we can step in and very quickly ramp up a confidential search to replace that person in advance of reorganizations oftentimes. And then we also, if you have a need on your team for a contract interim person, somebody's going on leave, and you're going to need some coverage, we place folks on our payroll on an hourly basis for you guys out there that might need that type of thing. And I'm available, as I mentioned, through LinkedIn. If anybody wants to reach out and ask me questions, I'll do my best to get back to everybody that reaches out.
Awesome. Everybody, that was Rick Denius. Rick, thanks for giving us an insider's look at how hiring and the job search and all that stuff around it really works, and how to beat the system with strategy and activity, not just luck and clicking a bunch of submit buttons. Thanks everybody for watching and listening to the Matt Ferret Show. Until next time, here's to your wealth, wisdom, and wellness.
Thanks for joining me on the Matt Ferret Show. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please share it with a friend and subscribe on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. If you're on Apple or Spotify, a quick rating or review really helps more people discover the show. For more resources, visit themattferretshow.com and sign up for the Matt Ferret newsletter. And if you or someone you care for needs Medicare guidance, book a no-obligation consultation at brickhouseagency.com. Helping people make smarter choices as they age is my passion. This show is here to light the path towards your wealth, wisdom, and wellness. Thanks for being a part of the conversation.
The Matt Ferret Show, related content, publications, and MF Media LLC is in no way associated, endorsed, or authorized by any governmental agency, including the Social Security Administration, the Department of Health and Human Services, or the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. The Matt Ferret Show is in no way associated with, authorized, approved, endorsed, nor in any way affiliated with any company, trademark names, or other marks mentioned or referenced in or on The Matt Ferret Show. Any such mention is for purpose of reference only. Any advice, generalized statistics, or opinions expressed are strictly those of the host and guests of The Matt Ferret Show. Although every effort has been made to ensure the contents of The Matt Ferret Show and related content are correct and complete, laws and regulations change quickly and often. The ideas and opinions expressed on The Matt Ferret Show aren't meant to replace the sage advice of healthcare, insurance, financial planning, accounting, or legal professionals. You are responsible for your financial decisions. It is your sole responsibility to independently evaluate the accuracy, correctness, or completeness of the content, services, and products of, and associated with, The Matt Ferret Show, MF Media LLC, and any related content or publications. The thoughts and opinions expressed on The Matt Ferret Show are those of the host and The Matt Ferret Show guests only, and are not the thoughts and opinions of any current or former employer of the host or guests of The Matt Ferret Show, nor is The Matt Ferret Show made by, on behalf of, or endorsed or approved by any current or former employer of the host or guests of The Matt Ferret Show.